You know that feeling when you're using AI? Like you're just scratching the surface? You've got one tool for writing, another for images, another for research, but they're all like these separate little islands that don't talk to each other. Well, today, we're gonna move past just being a user. We're gonna become architects. We're gonna learn how to design and build our very own custom AI engine for basically any project you can dream up.
And this is the core problem, right? We have this incredible universe of amazing AI tools, but they all live in their own little worlds. You do your research in one app, you draft your text in another, and you make visuals somewhere else entirely. That constant jumping around, that context switching, it just kills your creative flow. So our goal today is to turn that scattered collection of tools into one single unified engine.
So here's our roadmap. First, we're gonna totally shift our mindset and learn to think like an architect. Then we'll go through our parts catalog, all the cool modular tools we'll be using. After that, we'll learn the rules for putting them all together, see a real pipeline in action, and finally, get you ready to build your own amazing engine.
Okay, this first step is maybe the most important. It's all about a change in philosophy. It's about leaving behind those generic one-size-fits-all AI solutions and moving from being a passive user to an active designer of your own workflows. You become the architect of what we're calling the Modular Studio, your own personalized, interconnected creative space.
And this, right here, this is the absolute core of that whole architect mindset. Look, AI can browse the web, it can summarize, it can generate stuff, sure. But it's your judgment, your intuition. That's the steering logic. You're the one who decides what actually matters, what to focus on, and where the project needs to go next. You are, without a doubt, the most critical part of this entire system.
This slide just breaks it down perfectly. A typical user, they might just accept the first thing an AI spits out. But an architect? Nope. They perform surgical edits. A user works in isolated tools. An architect designs intentional, deliberate handoffs between them. It's really the difference between just following a recipe versus building a custom kitchen so you can cook absolutely anything you want.
All right, so every good architect needs their parts catalog. Let's dive in and break down the core components we're going to use to build our engine. And we're not just going to look at what they are, but what their specific job is inside our pipeline. First up, we've got Notebook LM. This is our logic and grounding utility. I want you to think of this as the foundation for your entire project. It's a closed system, which is just a fancy way of saying it will only answer questions based on the documents that you provide. And this is huge. It basically eliminates AI hallucinations, where the AI just starts making stuff up. It keeps everything factually tethered to your research.
And here's what's so powerful. Notebook LM isn't just for research. It's a multimedia synthesis engine. This studio panel lets you instantly transform your grounded sources into all kinds of structured artifacts. You can generate an interactive mind map, a seriously high-quality infographic, or even a draft audio podcast overview, all from that same core data. This lets you explore your ideas in a bunch of different formats, like instantly.
So if Notebook LM is the warehouse where you gather all your raw materials, then Gemini Canvas, well, that's your assembly desk. This is the workshop where you do all those surgical edits we talked about. It's this incredible, infinite canvas where you can take raw ideas and really shape them with amazing precision, whether it's text, code, or design. What makes Canva so versatile is that it has these three distinct production modes. You've got drafting for text, layout for turning your rough sketches into actual prototypes, and my personal favorite, coding mode. This is where you can do something called vibe coding, which is as cool as it sounds. You literally just describe what you want the code to do in plain English, and the AI generates it for you. It's wild. Okay, this might be the most underrated part of the whole system. Google Docs. It's the connective tissue, the context bridge. Because all of these other tools can read from and write to Google Docs, it basically acts as your project's short-term memory, or its RAM. It saves the state of your work, which means you can move between all these different tools without ever losing context. And finally, we have Gemini Gems. This is our behavioral utility. A gem is basically a customizable AI agent that you get to program with very specific instructions. Think of it as your project's director or your system architect. It's there to enforce your rules, like a certain tone of voice or a specific coding style, and it does it consistently across every single tool in your pipeline. Okay, so we've got our parts, right? We have the grounding utility, the assembly desk, the context bridge, and the behavioral director. All the components are laid out here on the factory floor. So the big question is, how do we actually connect them and build a functioning engine?
And that brings us to the rules of assembly. See, building a really powerful pipeline isn't about just finding some magic automate button and pressing it. It's about following 3 core principles that put you, the architect, in complete and total control.
So here are the 3 big ones. First, use intentional handoffs. This is so important. By manually moving data between your tools, you force yourself to take a pause and think critically. You make a deliberate choice at each step, which keeps you firmly in the driver's seat. Second, you want to layer your sources to control how smart your project is. And third, you have to preserve context by always using that central Google Doc as your anchor, your single source of truth.
All right, theory is great, but let's see how this all actually comes together in the real world. We're going to walk through a case study where we build a software application from the ground up, with you acting as the technical director. Now, don't worry about trying to memorize this whole chart. The key thing to see here is the blueprint. It shows the designed flow of information. You can see how a project brief from Notebook LM moves over to Google Docs, or how a prototype from Canva gets sent to a code repository like GitHub. Every single one of these moves is a deliberate, intentional handoff. So here's our goal. Build a brand new software application. We're going to start with nothing but the technical documentation, and we're going to end up with a working prototype, all by using our custom-built pipeline. Okay, here's how the pipeline plays out in 5 phases. Phase 1 is ingestion. We upload all the tech docs into Notebook LM to ground the project in facts. Phase 2, synthesis. We ask Notebook LM to generate a project brief and save it to our central Google Doc. Phase 3 is assembly. We jump into Gemini Canvas and use vibe coding to generate our software components. Phase 4, documentation. We record a walkthrough of the prototype. And finally, Phase 5, governance. We create a custom gem to act as a technical auditor, making sure all our code meets our standards. See? Every step has a specific tool and a very clear purpose. And that brings us to the final and really the most important idea of all. By mastering these components and these principles, you unlock the ability to build your own custom engine. So if there's one thing you take away today, let it be this. The magic isn't in any single one of these tools. The real power lies in your ability to orchestrate them, to design a custom pipeline that is perfectly tailored to whatever your project is. You are the conductor of this AI orchestra. By shifting your thinking from just a user to an architect, you can literally build an engine for anything. For writing a novel, for designing an app, for launching a business. The parts are all here on the table. The rules of assembly are clear. So the only question left is, what engine will you build?